We're joined now by Dan Bice to talk about some very interesting stories he's had in the paper this week about the Bradley Foundation, which, while it's very well known locally, isn't so much well known nationally, but that could be changing, Dan, because as your story has noted, they're in the midst of a very aggressive, expansive effort to take their Wisconsin model and drop it into swing states and important states across the country. Tell us a little bit about that effort.
Well, the Bradley Foundation, as you said, does nationally fly beneath the radar, but has been very influential. They have about $900 million that they can spend, usually spend about $40–45 million a year. And in recent years, starting around 2010, they've been doing a lot of stuff nationally, and they decided to change their focus and try to see if they could have some influence in Wisconsin. They set up, or didn't set up, but they funded about 14 nonprofits, very aggressive conservative nonprofits, and they did their work. There was a legal center, their think tanks, their opposition research centers, and they pumped $13 million into those groups, and they were very successful in helping Scott Walker achieve his goals. And coming off of that, they decided, well, let's try this elsewhere. So they've moved into other states. They moved into the state of Washington. Colorado is their big focus right now, and North Carolina.
All right, and let's talk about where these documents came from, because that's its own interesting story. They didn't. They were provided to us, but they were hacked by a group from potentially, apparently.
Well, they call themselves,
Russia,
yeah, they call themselves, the hackers call themselves Anonymous Poland, and right before the election last year, they hacked the records, put stuff out. They inserted 3 bogus documents in there trying to make it look like the Bradley Foundation was trying to give money to Hillary Clinton, which is funny in and of itself. But these same hackers have been involved in other stuff that would be of interest to the Russians, and so cybersecurity experts say it's most likely Russians, though the Bradley Foundation has said that they've spent a lot of money on trying to figure out who it is, and they right now just don't know. So, so they were hacked. It was out and it was online for like 5 days, and then they pulled it down. And somebody was able to grab that material at that time, give it to us, and we had to be very careful with it because the information's loaded with viruses and malware and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
so
I think important to note that, I mean, the Bradley Foundation officials, these are authentic documents.
They're not disputing.
We're reporting on. There's no dispute about whether they're accurate. It's just a question of
no. There's no dispute. As soon as you look beyond those 3 documents, it's immediately clear because everything matches up. The Bradley Foundation has been good about publishing who gets their grants, and what we see in there. There's personnel information in there, but we haven't really focused on that. We've been looking at who gets the grants and why, and you can tell from the records, that sort of stuff. Plus, probably the document that's gotten the most attention so far is their enemies list. The board said draft a list of people who are thwarting conservatives, and so they came up with 17 names, and they would be the 17 names that you would probably expect if you were drafting that. So there's the people writing the documents are staffers there. It all fits together, and actually I was expecting a little bit of pushback from that from them on the stuff, but they were like,
well, it's interesting when you get this kind of views. You get this unguarded, unvarnished, authentic, what they're really thinking, not what they're putting out there.
Right. I mean, just an example of that is the discussion about why the Bradley Foundation funded this news operation in Madison, and they said that they were, quote, exploiting the gap in local news due to cutbacks at newspapers, which, I mean, it is true newspapers have cut back and stuff, but I'm sure they wouldn't say publicly we're exploiting this gap or whatever, but it's conservatives talking to conservatives internally about which groups they should spend their money on. But in addition to that, in addition to the political stuff, the Bradley Foundation is very, very involved locally in the arts community.
Right. And this is the same vein of all these sorts of things that were going on behind the scenes with the symphony and all these different groups that people are
with the symphony. They gave $15 million to the symphony, the second largest grant they've ever given, but they've never announced that. And the symphony is moving from its current headquarters over to a new location, and is being underwritten in large part with this donation. They were planning to announce this later on once the symphony had received a certain amount of matching grants, but we were able to see that. We were also able to see with the art museum, there was a portrait called Eggs Benedict of the Pope that was made out of condoms. The people at the Bradley Foundation, a group of very conservative people, did not like this. They went over there, encouraged them to take it down. The art museum refused, so the Bradley Foundation withdrew its grant to the art museum. So we all knew that publicly there was this huge dispute, but we didn't know anything about that. And then another one that we, again, knew nothing about is the Public Museum. Has a new director there, and internally at the Bradley Foundation, they had some questions about his political leanings and basically said, we need to keep an eye on this guy. They didn't say why exactly. My guess is there were some concerns about global warming. They say that they had some concerns about the way he was planning to run the operation, but right now they haven't withdrawn funding. In fact, they've been giving a substantial amount of money. So, but you can see their questions. And in addition to that, it's like a keyhole where you can look in on a lot of the arts communities and the grants, because they evaluate these arts groups on how well they're doing financially when they decide whether to spend the money. They'll say, this one's not doing so well, and this one is doing well, and we decided to direct the money that way.
All right. Well, that's there's some very interesting stories we've had already. There are going to be more stories in the pipeline. You can find all of those at jsonline.com/Bradley. And thanks for joining us to talk about those, Dan.
Sure.